I'm 67, I just retired, and I regret it. Now, I'm not retired and I'm not 67, but the person we're talking about in this video is, and I would imagine this is a scenario that a lot of people who end up retiring face at some point down the line, because you have your life and it's going a certain way for 40 years or so, maybe even longer, depending on when you started working. And then all of a sudden you're in this situation where it's like, what am I supposed to do now? You have all these extra decisions that you have to make about how you're going to spend your time and how you're going to spend your life, and let's face it, your money. And this can be tough on people. So today I thought it would be interesting to make a video about this. Now, in 2020, there was a study done that found that 28% of retirees are prone to depression, which is nearly 1/3. And a lot of that is due to the fact that their life kind of just got turned upside down, and people are bored, or they're just unsure about what to do. Or maybe they don't have the finances to do everything that they thought that they could do once they were retired. So there's a lot of different reasons that this can lead to depression, even loneliness. And for all the complaining that people do about how much they hate their jobs, it might turn out that it was actually better than being at home and being retired. But hey, that's for you to decide. Now, let's say you're in this situation and you want to return to work, but you don't have to, in order to kind of feel like you're doing something, in order to make a few extra dollars, in order to meet people, and get out of the house more. Let's say that that's something you're interested in doing. And it turns out this is actually something that can help you live longer in retirement as well, if you choose to do this. Most people who end up going back to work after retiring, they usually do it for one of two reasons. Usually it's either out of social benefits, getting out of the house and meeting people and feeling useful, or it's for the emotional benefits, which can just come from, camaraderie and feeling like, you have people around you and you're not just alone. Especially if you had a job where you went into the office every day, or you had a lot of people you worked with that you liked that you no longer get to see anymore. That can have a detrimental impact on somebody's mental health when all of a sudden that's not the case anymore. Of course, the problem starts is once you earn too much money and you're trying to collect Social Security, then this can be a problem in terms of receiving your full Social Security benefit, and it will also change how your Social Security benefits are taxed. Now, if you're under 67 years old, which is the full retirement age, the government will deduct $1 from your benefits for every $2 that you earn above the $22,320 annual limit. And once you reach that limit, you will lose $1 for every $3 you earn above $59,520 a year. And in a way, this is a good thing, because if you're retired, then the goal is to actually enjoy some of that retirement, not spend it, working for the rest of your life. And, if you are working too much, not only are you going to be spending too much of your retirement working, but also you're going to be in a situation where you're likely going to earn too much, which will heavily impact the amount of benefits you're going to receive. So the best balance for most people in retirement is probably a hybrid, working a small part-time job to get the emotional benefits of it, to get the camaraderie, to get the social aspect, and maybe you'll earn a little bit of money. And it's not going to be enough to push you over the edge in terms of losing some of your Social Security benefit. And then the rest of the time, you spend enjoying your retirement. I mean, after all, isn't that the reason to be retired? They had another survey back in 2023 from people 65 to 75 years old. And people in that age group actually spent more hours in leisure and sports than any other age group, at about 6.7 hours per day. So you can definitely have fun and enjoy yourself. Go play golf, learn tennis, do something that you enjoy doing. Go hiking. That's what I would be doing. All that free time means you have plenty of time left over to spend with your family, your grandchildren, your children, your spouse. Look at all the time that you missed out on or didn't have all those years you were working, and now you finally have it. Now you can finally, help out with your grandchildren if that's something you want to do, or you can, show up to different events for your children that you couldn't do while you were working. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do. And all of this stuff is going to, of course, give you better mental health, better physical health, a sense of belonging, it's going to be overall a positive thing. But there are some things that most people are never going to tell you about retirement, because about 76% of retirees end up struggling with the transition to retirement. One thing I'm proud of is my mom retired about a year ago now, and she's absolutely loving it. She is doing a bunch of things that she has always wanted to do when she was working, but just didn't have the time. And she is really living up her life now in retirement, which I'm really happy to see. So shout out to you, Mom, for doing that. But here are some secrets about retirement that people won't tell you, and you kind of have to learn on your own. And the first thing is that retirement is empty, meaning that it is just a name. It's just a name for a phase in life. This doesn't mean anything about anything. You have to decide how you're going to spend it. You have to decide if you're even going to do it. And it's all voluntary. So it's up to you to fill retirement with things that are valuable and important to you. One of the biggest mistakes that people who retire make is that they fill retirement with all the wrong things. You know, some people might say, well, I'm kind of bored now, let me remodel the kitchen. And that ends up costing 30 or 40 grand to do that. And that's probably something that you should have done when you were working, not now that you're retired and trying to live on a budget and a fixed income. The second secret to retirement is you have to beware of the dark side, which kind of goes back to what we talked about at the beginning here, and that is your mental health. You know, that needs to be a huge priority in retirement. According to a retirement coach, she sees clients who have millions of dollars who would never run out of money, but they are miserable because they do not practice all the things that need to be practiced in retirement. There's a mental aspect to it. There's a social aspect to it. There's a physical aspect. There's a spiritual, and there's a financial aspect to it. Really, that just describes life, if you ask me, which is why retirement is just another phase of life. But some people are late to the game and don't learn these things until they're sitting around retired and realize hey, I'm 67 years old. I've never really practiced how to do any of this stuff. All I did was work and provide for my family, never gave it a second thought. Because you gain time and freedom in retirement when you leave your job, but you also lose your routine. You lose your direction. You lose your social connection. You lose the mental stimulus. You lose the influence you had. So you're basically, your entire social status in life, if you will, changes and flips on its head once you retire. And so what happens is a lot of people end up grieving their career identity in retirement, and they become disoriented. And then what happens is you start second guessing yourself and start regretting being retired, like we talked about at the beginning. You have to find ways to replace your old routine, your old work, the things that you used to do, and you need to be prepared for that both mentally and, let's face it, financially, because say you pick up some new expensive habits, that can add up, guys. Like, for example, even if it's just golf, that sounds like it's something cheap, but it's actually not. Like, you can be paying, $60, $70 a day at a golf course, which can really add up if that's something that you want to do. Now, obviously, if you save for it and you plan for that, that can be a nothing burger. But for somebody who didn't and now all of a sudden decides that's something they want to try and they didn't plan for, it can be a burden. The fourth thing is retirement doesn't necessarily mean no more work, because when you're retired, you are responsible for yourself and your relationships. The new work that you're going to have, your new job, is going to be working on you. A lot of people go into retirement thinking that they're going to retire to something, or they're going somewhere in retirement. But the truth is that once you retire, you're still going to be the same person that you were before you retired. And if that's an empty person that's not very interesting or doesn't have interesting ideas or things that they want to do, then your life is going to be pretty dull. So it's important that you work on that aspect of it before you even get to retirement, to avoid that kind of stage of grief. So instead of trying to reinvent yourself in retirement, try doing some of that before you retire. That way, once you actually get to retirement, you feel more prepared and you have some things ready on the agenda that you can start tackling right away on day one. And then the fifth thing is, do not expect your financial advisor to be in the driver's seat for your retirement. Okay, they can help you, they can guide you and push you in the right direction, but ultimately it's going to be up to you to make sure you are making the right financial decisions in retirement. So keep that in mind as well. And of course, this only applies if you have a financial advisor. But some people, once they retire, they think, well, this person's just going to handle everything for me and I don't have to do anything now, which is not the case. Now, one thing that's impacting everybody right now, but particularly people who are retired and on fixed incomes, is inflation. Now, the recent inflation report was hotter than expected at a 3% year-over-year CPI. Anybody who saw my video the other day that talked about how we should actually be calculating inflation, how we should actually be calculating wage growth, unemployment, etc. It turns out that, if you look at what the CPI was in 2023, the official number was 4.1%, okay? But the true cost of living went up about 9.4% when you factor in all of the things that people regularly buy, because the CPI is not a really accurate depiction of things that most people spend money on, because there's only a handful of items that most people spend the majority of their money on, and conveniently those things have gone up in price and are a lot more expensive than the average item in the CPI. Things like rents, things like insurance, things like gas and groceries and utilities, those are all the staples that people need in order to actually survive on a monthly basis. And of course, if you're retired and on a fixed income, then this is something that can really affect your monthly budget. In fact, according to a 2024 study from Allianz Life, they found out that 63% of Americans said they worry more about running out of money in retirement than death. Imagine that, guys. Imagine that is your biggest concern, is running out of money. That is just horrible. And the current state of the economy just exacerbates that fear for sure. Another study that was done in 2024 by Schroders, they found out that one of the top concerns among retirees is that inflation was eroding the value of their assets. Also, there's a pretty big fear of rising healthcare costs and a stock market downturn. And that's something rightfully that they should be afraid of, because healthcare costs, like everything else, have been shooting through the roof. And a stock market downturn is basically all but inevitable at this point. We're going to see something happen. Whether it's going to be a major crash like we saw back in 2008 or a mild correction, we don't know yet, but guaranteed something will happen at some point. And the problem, obviously, is they tell us that inflation has been cooling down, but we know that that's not true, especially anybody who saw my video that highlighted how these figures that we get from the government should be calculated. We're given all the data, but it's presented with a nice little neat bow around the top as if it's some kind of present and we should be grateful for it, guys, when in reality, it's a disaster. And the biggest disaster is not just how high inflation actually is right now, but the fact that it's not going away, the fact that it's sticking around. And then of course you have the Social Security cost of living increases not keeping up with inflation, not even close actually, okay? There's only a 2.5% cost of living adjustment at a time when the real inflation number is probably somewhere between 6 and 9% right now. And take a look at this. Just between 2010 and 2024, Social Security benefits lost about 20% of their buying power. Well, the dollar overall probably lost 20% of its buying power during this time frame. That's the reality, because you're paid Social Security benefits in dollars. If they would be paying people in gold and silver, then your buying power would have been preserved. But nobody gets paid Social Security benefits in gold and silver. And unfortunately, this brings a lot of retirees to a spot that they might not want to be in. Some people want to go back to work for all the reasons we talked about earlier, but a lot of other people are being forced to go back to work due to this situation, due to the higher cost of living and the Social Security benefits not keeping up with the increases. Maybe they didn't save enough for retirement either, or they just don't want to be relying entirely on their retirement savings and worried about outliving that money and maybe still working in your healthier years. Now, the other day when I talked about Social Security and the whole DOGE department finding out there was 20 million people that are not supposed to be getting Social Security, there's a lot of speculation now of whether or not that story is true. A lot of people are claiming it's false, so I ended up taking that video down because I don't want to be somebody who's out there spreading fake information, guys. You know me, you know how I operate this channel. I only want to present you with the ideas and facts that are true, okay? I don't want to be out there just spouting off all kinds of conspiracy theories. And since I couldn't confirm 100% if it was true or false, I said it was better to just take it down. Now, one of my viewers, Carol, who is on Social Security, she told me that she went to the security office in Kent, Washington. Pretty much everybody there was from a different country that didn't speak English. Also, mostly younger males. We're not talking people who are retired who actually should be getting a Social Security check, okay? And she says that if you were there to apply for retirement benefits, that you were told that you had to make an appointment after waiting 2 hours in line just to see somebody. And the appointments, of course, are booked for months and months in advance. But if you're just there, somebody that doesn't speak English, they're assisting you and helping you right away. Imagine that. So the Social Security office is not only prioritizing people who are not even American citizens, who didn't contribute a single dime to Social Security, but they're also contributing to sucking away all of the Social Security funds that you or me are paying into the system right now that we very well may never receive. And then we have to sit there and wonder, why is Social Security broke? You know, look at the ages of these people who are collecting Social Security right now, and it's pretty easy to understand why most people are never going to receive any benefits because of the waste, fraud, and abuse, okay? Maybe there are not 20 million people that are collecting Social Security right now that are not supposed to be, but there's definitely a good chunk of people who are collecting it that don't deserve it, okay, that never worked for it. And then they want to raise the Social Security tax. They want to, charge us even more to contribute even more to this Ponzi scheme where there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse. And I've also seen a lot of stories on the internet, which I don't know if they are true or not, but you see a lot of people claiming that they're getting all this money in food stamps and Social Security benefits, disability benefits, and they're like younger than me, and they're getting like $3-4 grand a month to just sit at home and do nothing, And the fact that this is even allowed to happen in this country is a tragedy. And I hope that it gets resolved. But anyways, if you are retired out there or you're somebody looking to retire soon, I wish you the best of luck. I wish you a happy and healthy retirement. Obviously, if you've made it to this stage in your life, you deserve it, and I hope you enjoy it. And likewise, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.